Welcome to the Lions Terrace Ministry. This is Reverend Liz Jackson. Education and Reality, Paleo-Hebrew found in all nations. Archeology proves Noah's land division. This time, all links are under the information obtained off the internet. So I don't claim any information that I have taken off the internet. What is Paleo-Hebrew? It's a classification of language belonging to the Semitic group. Semitic language definition is a language that belongs to a subfamily of the Afro-Asiatic language family, including Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and Ethiopic. These languages are really one and the same, but of course your scholars wouldn't want you to know this. Abba wanted a brief history on the languages, so again, remember before the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11:1 states, "And the whole world was of one language and of one speech." Yasher tells us more about the Tower of Babel and backs up Genesis 11:1. Yasher 7:46. "And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of Abba, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days." Nimrod, who built Babel, is the most wicked man that roamed the lands back in that time. And before we end this sermon, we will end with Nimrod's tomb discovery. As always, you need to remember names have been changed to fit a narrative, and that narrative is to hide who you really are. So, this sermon is going to prove with archaeological findings how Noah's division of the land is true. Below is a photo of Paleo-Hebrew, modern Hebrew, and lettering used today. I'm not a linguistics teacher, so I will not teach Hebrew. Just remember, Hebrew is read left to right, both in modern time and ancient days. Next, an out-of-place artifact is known as an oopart, which is an artifact of historical, archaeological, or paleontological interest found in an unusual context, which challenges conventional historical chronology by its presence in that context. Such artifacts may appear too advanced for the technology claimed to be known to have existed at the time, or may suggest human presence at the time before humans were known to have existed, according to your paid entities that, like to spew false and fake news. Other examples may suggest contact between different cultures that is hard to account for with conventional historical understanding. So, since I live in America, I will begin in America. I also want to add a disclaimer, and since this is a free ministry and not for profit, I am by no means trying to sell others information for profit. I have not contacted any of these individuals, and all information obtained is taken by the published online sources. In the sake of proof, I know Abba has this. If someone dares to try to come after me, I'm broke. Just so you know, this is a free ministry. My goal is to teach the true word of Abba, and as he leads, so I will always go, no matter what these demon entities and the beast system tries to do to me. Links to source information will always be provided with picture proof, as none of these findings are archaeologically dug up by myself. Japheth's inheritance. We go to Los Lunas, New Mexico, taken from tabletmag.com. And depending on the dividing line, New Mexico possibly could belong to Ham. I'm not 100% sure because I couldn't get down to the very, nth degree in Noah's land division, but that's okay. So who wrote this code in the heart of the Rio Abajo Desert? Pfeiffer's translation of the mysterious inscription on the stone that created the great interest among scholars and others states, I am Yahuwah, the God who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt not make unto thee a graven image. The stone began to be referred to as the mystery stone or commandment rock. James Tabor, chair of the Department of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, says that the archaeological context is to be found at the top of the mountain where there are the remains of dwellings and more Hebrew writings. The organization of the dwellings on the mountaintop plateau is reminiscent of Mazda. But even more convincing to Tabor is the star map engraved on one of the stones that records a solar eclipse dated to September 15th, 107 BC. And that was the date of Rosh Hashanah of that year. Again, Rosh Hashanah is your actual date for the creation day, not just a new year, but the celebration of creation. That is when time actually moves forward. That is your actual quote unquote new year, if you want to put a modern twist to it. Rosh Hashanah. Next, we move to Bat Creek Stone, Tennessee. This photo is by J. Houston McClog, published on September 2010, and it is copywritten, so I included his copyrights along with his source that he published to. And it states, Bat Creek Stone was professionally excavated in 1889 from an undisturbed burial mound in eastern Tennessee by the Smithsonian's Mound Survey Project. The project, Cyrus Thomas, initially declared that the curious inscription on the stones were beyond question letters of the Cherokee alphabet. In the 1960s, Henriette Martz and Corey Ayob both noticed that the inscription, when inverted, again, Abaya says, surely your turning of things upside down, can be esteemed as the potter's clay. From Thomas's orientation to that of the above photograph, instead appears to be anti-Semitic. The late Semitic language scholar Cyrus Gordon confirmed that it is Semitic, and specifically Paleo-Hebrew of approximately the 1st or 2nd century AD, but again, he doesn't actually know, hence the word approximately. According to him, the 5 letters to the left of the comma-shaped word divider reads from left to right, Judea. He noted that the broken letter on the far left is consistent with mem, in which case the word should read Judeans. The article continues to state, a new petroglyph analysis of the stone by Scott Walter and Richard Staley of American Petroglyph Services conclude our geological findings are consistent with the Smithsonian Institute's field report written by John W. Emmert. The complete lack of the orange-colored silty clay residue in any of the characters of the inscription is consistent with many hundreds of years of weathering in a wet earth mound comprised of soil and hard red clay. The inscribed stone and all the other artifacts and remains found in the mound with it or can be no younger than when the bodies of the deceased were buried inside the mound. Archaeologists have yet to react to this new study. Again, the above photo of the Paleo-Hebrew rock is a copyright photo by Warren W. Dexter in 1986. It states it was used by permission, not by me, but by the article written. And I wanted to make sure that since it stated it was copywritten, I added that. I did not ask anybody's permission, and I did the sermon at 3 o'clock in the morning. So even if I found a phone number, I highly doubt they want me to call them at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I pray for the sake of education, Mr. Dexter doesn't sue. But again, Abba Yah has this, so I have no fear. Next, we move to language of the British Isles connection to Hebrew, ancient Israel, and Spain, and Britain. A fascinating discussion of the language connection with ancient Israel appears beginning on page 32. Samuel Bockart, 1599 to 1667, a profound Oriental language scholar, showed that the name Britain itself is a corruption of the Hebrew words Barat Anak, or Islands of Ten. We read that an eminent Cornish scholar of last century, who devoted a great deal of his time to prove the affinity between the Hebrew and Welsh language, observes, it would be difficult to adduce a single article or form of construction in the Hebrew grammar, but the same is to be found in Welsh, and that there are many whole sentences in both languages exactly the same in the very words. Two columns of quotations follow showing the connection between the Hebrews and Welsh languages, after which Pastor Margoloth asks, where could the early Britons have gotten hold of such whole Hebrew, pure Hebrew sentences? They state the only answer, of course, is that Hebrews visited and colonized the British Isles in ancient times. But as we know from dissecting Jubilees, that they have been there since Japheth inherited his territory. So next we move to Russia. Japheth's side of the Ural Mountains, north of the Black Sea. A seal bearing an inscription in Hebrew was found in Russian territory north of the Black Sea. Why is this discovery significant? Written in 2015. And again, we have proof Jubilees is correct, and we are all one people born from Adam, saved by righteousness of Noah. The past summer, an amazing discovery was made near Rostov-on-Don, a Russian port city on the north coast of the Black Sea. Archaeologists were excavating the 2,000-year-old tomb of a Samaritan noblewoman. To their surprise, among the artifacts discovered in the tomb was an object they never expected to be there, a carnelian seal engraved in ancient Hebrew. The inscription on the seal simply bears the name El-Shib or El-Shav, also a form of Elizabeth. This was a common Hebrew name meaning God restores. It's a derivative of Elizabeth and is actually found in 15 verses in the King James Version of the Bible. Archaeologists have dated the other contents of the tomb in sometime between the 1st century BC and the 1st century around the time of Yahushua HaMashiach's life, but the seal is centuries older. Next, we move our evidence and detective skills to Ham's inheritance. Puerto Rico mountains of Guayanil, Boquín, Puerto Rico. 800 ancient stones with Hebrew writings in Puerto Rico authenticated. In 1893, Nazaro wrote a short article entitled Escrucia Aborigine de Caribe, Aboriginal Writings of the Caribbean, in which he explained his interpretations of these carvings. After a thorough analysis of the stones and their inscriptions, he dismissed an Arawak-Tano language origin, and by 1897 he concluded that the writings were more reminiscent of ancient Hebrew. Comparing this discovery with the spoken Tano language of his day, Nazario discerned words in the Tano Arawak language that were Semitic in origin and pronunciation. One example is the Tano name for the supreme spirit of spirits, Yahya, Abba Yah. By comparison, the God of the monotheistic Hebrew culture is known by the abbreviated form of his sacred name, Yah. The stones are inscribed in a language script previously unknown to linguistics with expertise in Phoenician and Proto-Hebrew. Experts deciphered the writing to be a mixture of Hebrew with a little bit of Phoenician and an unknown script. Well, maybe the weathering changed some of the ways the lettering looked. Again, we were all one language. Genesis 11:1 tells us this. Yasher backs it up. Spain, or Gadir, as recorded in Jubilees, in the book titled History of Hebrew Commonwealth, published by Johann Jan in 1840, we read that a stone was found in 1480 AD in the Sagnatum, Spain, that reads, "This is the tomb of Adon-Iram, the officer of King Solomon, who came to collect the tribute and who died the day," the rest is illegible. The photo is an excerpt that I screen captured from the book that I included in the references. It goes on to continue. A second monument discovered in Spain with ancient Hebrew lettering reads, "Rise with a bitter voice, a lamentation for the great prince. Yah has taken him." Amazah, an old Hebrew book called Darcy Noam, or Ways of Plentiness, gives an account of this epithet. Pastor Margaluth sums up this issue well in saying, "I see no reason for disbelieving that there were Israelites in Spain in the time of David and Solomon, and we know Jubilees states prior to that because that land is Ham's." Shem's territory. How come Jews were living in China? British Library. China, if you are unaware, has bans on the Bible and Bible studies. People get thrown in prison for preaching in China. You want to know why? Because they don't want you to know that Chinese people are part of Adam, saved by Noah, and our brothers and sisters. Formerly known as Bianliang, Kafing was one of the 7 ancient capitals of China. It is in eastern Han province, deep in the middle of China, on the banks of the Yellow River. No one is sure how or why they got there. I'm sure Jubilees tells us. A possible theory is that they were originally Persian traders, but the Jewish community of Kafnig and its synagogue is said to have existed for many centuries to about 1850. Let's read why it only lasted till 1850. The community itself maintained that they had been there since the 1st century, and business letters from 718 written using Hebrew characters, but in the Persian language, is cited as the earliest evidence of Jewish presence here. There are half a dozen passing references to Chinese Jews by travelers up to 1605. When enter the Jesuit and Vatican. A Jesuit missionary wrote back to the Vatican about Kafnig, and the discovery excited some interest, but serious research didn't begin until the 1800s, by which time virtually all recognizable traces of Judaism had disappeared. Not a coincidence. You enter the Jesuits and the Vatican, and you get things destroyed in order to hide your identity. Next, we move to the Philippines, land of Ophir, Garden of Eden, Sermon coming soon, but please watch the God Culture because they've done amazing videos outlining the land of Ophir, also known as the Philippines. Chapter 1.3, Loang, Sumar, and Tondo, Manila, the unfolding of a very ancient Philippine civilization. Are Filipinos Asians, Pacific Islanders, or Jewish? Ha! Ring-a-ding-ding! They are from Adam, saved by righteousness via Noah, and are our brothers and sisters. Loang Halapeg topography. According to Hebrew scholars like Dr. Narag, the original settlers of Lawan, the Laoquis were a tribe named the place after Awan or Aquila, the daughter of Adam. Again, remember in your table of nations and in Genesis, they don't tell you Adam and Eve had daughters. Genesis has been corrupted. Your Bibles have been mistranslated to lead you astray, which is why you need to read what the Vatican tells you not to. So, in a note in the head of Principalia Hereditary Council, Dr. Narag said, "What I discovered is that Lawan is the center of Ophir, based on historical records of the Philippines and on recorded city, the native oral historical epic of the people of Samar Island. Some names of Hatti indigenous terms for Lakan or paramount rulers mentioned include Lakan, Lawan, and you can read more about that at the website pictured there. Nimrod's tomb is discovered. And brothers and sisters, I wanted to let you know that finding all this archaeology, some of it I knew because I watched shows like Gaia, or I watch things on YouTube. Mystery History is one of my favorite channels because it points out quote unquote ooh parts. It's just I don't know if they know about the book of Jubilees and have taken time to, read through it and decipher it, because that would answer a lot of their missing information. But I study to show myself approved, and I hope you do too. Nimrod's tomb discovered. First, what does the name Nimrod mean? It comes from the Hebrew word marad, meaning rebel. Adding an in before the m, it becomes an infinitive construct. Ongoing excavations and research at Nimrod's mountain in Bitlis have revealed the history behind the tomb and treasures of King Nimrod. The real venue of the tomb, which was constructed 2,000 years ago, has been determined. Nimrod lived in the time of Noah, FYI. That's not very old for it to be 2,000 years old. I'm just saying. And then whenever you actually study the real date and time, and that sermon's coming soon, you're going to understand just how deceptive this world is. Back to the article. Writer and researcher Mehmet Torin Serdar said his team had determined the location of the tomb after an extensive period of research, noting that the mountain of Adiyam has no relation to the mountain in Bitlis. Serdar said, "This is only a resemblance in name. Again, names have been changed to hide your identity. The reason being there is another kin of Adam's Nimrod in Nimrut. King Nimrod, according to the book of Genesis and the book of Chronicles, was the son of Cush and the great-grandson of Noah and the king of Shinar. He is depicted in the Tanakh as a man of power on earth and a mighty hunter. Extra-biblical traditions associating with him and the Tower of Babel led to his reputation as a king who rebelled against Abba Yah. Several Mesopotamian ruins were given Nimrod's name by 8th century. I say Arabs, but I'm sorry, it's what I've come accustomed to. His tomb remained on the mountains, and the team believes to have found the real location of the tomb in Bitlis. So I don't mean any harm by mispronunciations of any sort. I really am honestly pointing this out because I don't want anybody to take offense to anything. So my prayer is this. My prayer is that this evidence helps you to understand we have been lied to. All of us. If the earth is correct in counting us, 7 billion people on, a flat earth, as we just learned when Noah divided the land, have been misled about where we come from and who we really are. Again, we are all children of the one true King, and that is Abba Yah. His story has been preserved in all mentioned areas of the world, and we are rediscovering our real past. Again, this ministry is free, so everyone can learn and share the truth. Nobody should ever have to pay a subscription to know that Abba Yah is real. Donate or don't, I could care less, because money will never hinder my walk or keeping this ministry up and running. Please, whatever you do, though, spread the truth by shining your light on His word. Again, we have all been lied to. We are brothers and sisters. We are one. We are one mankind. We stem from Adam, saved by Noah's righteousness. And if you can't see that, then I am truthfully sorry. And I beg anybody who would like to send or comment or whatnot, any information that you have to disprove what it is Abba Yah has shown me. Because all in my researches, I can't find any other nations or text that describe how the land has been divided and how people have actually been around on this entire planet since Noah divided the land. And before that, because Pangea was the land, and then the flood happened and broke up the land, and then Noah divided the land amongst his children. So if you have a better explanation in a text that does not include indoctrination from Rome or Greek, or stems back and can be traced back to Babylon, or includes any form of a god coming out of a cloud and a stick, or out of a tree, or through a rock, and bam, there was children, like some of the flood stories I read, please let me know. I'm open to all discussions, but what I will not do is tolerate hate. So if you leave a nasty comment, I will block you and delete it. For this ministry does not promote hate. It does not promote violence. What it is promoting and restoring the true word of Abba Yah. I pray that you understand who you really are and that you stop hating people because you lack knowledge. Show yourself approved. Become one with Abba Yah. He just wants a relationship with you. He wants you to know who He is because He knows you. He knows you. He created you from the dawn of time. All souls are mine, says Abba Yah. The soul that sins and the soul of the righteous. You have two choices. You can remain under the law of sin and death, or you can bask in the glorious law of the Spirit of life, which is the true word of Abba Yah.